Today I will explain the movie The Root of the Problem, which begins with a man. His name is Paul, and he works in real estate and sells houses. He doesn't do his job nicely and hides the faults of the houses. His wife loves her uncle a lot and becomes upset because of his death. Paul reaches his office to discuss the inheritance of his wife's uncle. In the next scene, the friend of Uncle John was also there, and Paul gets shocked because he was given a plan instead of money. Paul and his wife are shown worried because they were expecting her uncle will leave a lot of money for them. Paul has a daughter who is fed up with her father's this behavior. Paul is shown at his home and gives water to that plant after some time. As he gives water to the plant, he discovers this plant harvests money and takes $100 from this plant. His family also arrives there, but he doesn't tell his family about this magic, and he gets scared that his wife also discovered the plant gives him money. His wife says, "I have given it water but nothing special has happened. The plant isn't growing yet," and Paul's tension releases hearing this. Thank God his wife didn't discover anything about it and give water to the plant. The plant was giving money day by day and Paul was becoming rich. A man comes and asks for church funds the next day. Paul gives him money and now he has become open-handed, and his family becomes surprised to see this. Paul also changes his appearance and starts wearing nice clothes. All thanks are for this plant which is harvesting money. Paul doesn't want to share this secret with his family and gives a lot of pocket money to his kids for the first time. His kids get surprised to see this and they want their father to behave like this for the rest of their life. Paul was wasting money day by day and buys a lawnmower for cutting the grass on his lawn. Now he also buys a car and it was expensive, so his wife becomes furious. From where did you get the money? And why is he wasting money on such things? She was suspecting him and was worried for her husband, that if her husband is doing an illegal task. After arguing with his wife, he again goes to the shed where he kept that plant. He again harvests the money and gets $100,000 from the plant. Paul becomes happy, and when he goes to the office, his friend says, "Your car isn't according to you." Paul becomes furious and goes to buy a brand new sports car and gives cash to the seller. The seller becomes suspicious about him and a detective was spying on him. Paul has bought an expensive car and shows this to his friend Jack and tells him, "I have got this because of Uncle John's money," and when he takes this to his home, his wife is not pleased and questions him about where he gets such large sums of money. Paul was depressed because of his wife's behavior, and the man again comes for church funding the next day. This time, he doesn't give him a single penny, and the man who came for donation is Uncle John's friend. He has discovered that he didn't sell Uncle John's house yet. Paul didn't give money for church donations. The detective comes to Paul's home when he isn't at home and investigates his wife about where Paul invests and what is his income. His wife defends her husband and tells her husband is a top realtor and earns money while selling houses. Later, the detective leaves because she wants to talk to Paul directly. The detective discovers there aren't any earnings from Paul for a month and his job isn't working properly. How has he purchased this expensive sports car? Now she starts observing Paul's activities from a distance. Paul becomes worried because his plant wasn't giving him money, and his wife asks the same question every day. That from where the money is coming? Paul becomes depressed after it and goes to the office of John's friend. He gives him a lot of money for the church. Uncle John's friend tells Paul to help people and advised him to become open-handed, and Paul likes this. He leaves after giving a lot of money for church funding. The detective who was chasing him reached the office and there was a lot of money given by Paul. Paul becomes frustrated because the plant wasn't giving him money. He reads Bible and many other books from which he will discover how this plant will give money. Paul has to play a game with his son the next day. Paul leaves soon due to it. His son was upset. He goes to the coffee shop and gives money to that unemployed man, and the man gets surprised that the man is giving him money for the first time without any reason. The detective who was watching Paul while giving money to that man captures him. The man who Paul gave the money was considered a drug dealer and held Uncle John's friend. She thinks they do something illegal together. Later, Paul goes to meet Jack and his wife calls him again and again. He ignores her calls and his wife, who was worried, reaches the factory with her daughter. Paul's daughter falls down from that hole accidentally that was covered by Paul, along with Jack, and his daughter's arm fractures because of falling. His daughter was taken to the hospital immediately, and Jack became furious at him and says, "This happened because of you, I shouldn't listen to you." He says, "This is your mistake, Paul, you didn't fix the ceiling and included me with you." When Jack leaves, his wife calls Paul's wife and she tells her, "I have seen Jack furious for the first time." Paul has realized his mistake and apologizes to his wife. Paul's daughter discharges from the hospital and Jack also becomes happy hearing this. They return home, but Paul's son was still angry with him and he apologized to him. His son forgives him and now they want to start their happy life, but then the next day, the detective arrests Paul with the officer. She was still feeling that Paul is involved in illegal activity. Paul meets the man whom he gave money and Uncle John's friend as well in the prison. Actually, the detective has arrested all of them because she was feeling they are together. Paul discovers that Uncle John's friend also knew about that plant and they were the men who have given Uncle John this plant. Uncle John's friend tells him that his uncle was like him before and used to stay unhappy even he got money from his plant, but even then he stays unhappy. Later, he decided to help the people with his money. He started donating to charity and likewise, his life becomes better. Paul discovers the kids' camp that was run by Uncle John was actually run by his wife's parents. They were released as Jack said they have got the money after selling the factory. He tells, "I have given the commission to Paul for selling the factory." Likewise, Paul was released. Paul decides to be involved in the kids' camp activity. He donates his brand new sports car for kids' camp and everyone becomes happy. Especially Jack and the friend of Uncle John, as they were proud of Paul. Paul is shown going on vacation with his family in the last scene of the movie. His plant was taken back by Uncle John's friend. Now he will keep that plant.